Growing up in small northern Ontario rural communities meant that the playgrounds I frequented weren't that of jungle gyms and swing sets erected over a safe, spongy surface to protect from falls. My playgrounds consisted of flowing rivers, wild blueberry patches, and acres upon acres of trees, all located just outside my front door. And I'm not talking about groomed hiking trails and camping parks and berry farms. I'm talking about the bush. Wild and unruly, my playground was shared with swarms of black flies, crayfish, otters, and black bears. Now, one of my favorite places to play was a nearby pine grove. What was to most simply a group of trees among many was to me, my siblings, and cousins, a place filled with promise. Among the tall trees with the light filtering through the branches, we imagined rooms within the grove. We'd take the fallen pine needles and the twigs that we found on the hard dirt ground and arrange them in these rooms, creating beds and chairs and kitchen tables. And we'd go from room to room playing make-believe for hours on end until we were called home for dinner, where we'd show up hungry, filthy from dirt and sap, and very happy. Now, of course, we'd go back the next day, and we'd see that forest dwellers had made themselves comfortable in the space, and our pine needle and twig setup would be all out of sorts. But that didn't bother us in the least. We'd simply tidy up and get back to our work of play, amused that we shared the space with chipmunks and squirrels and bunnies and whoever else took up residence for the night shift. In the bush, whether a pine grove or the bank of a river, in the wilderness, with trees and water and animals as neighbors, we felt welcomed, like we were taken care of in a way that's hard to describe. So when I hear of Jesus spending so much time in the wilderness amidst the wild wonders of creation, it just makes sense. Jesus was born alongside animals, baptized in a river, went into the desert to retreat and reflect, met some of his closest friends along the seashore, hiked up a mountain to teach, and prayed in a garden. Still, when we consider the wilderness, it's easy for us to think of it as simply a dangerous place or somewhere to be tamed. History shows us this. We domesticate the wilderness, the land, and those who dwell there, making it more palatable to live in. Yet in Jesus' parable of the lost sheep, it's in the wilderness that 99 of the 100 sheep are left. Not on the farm behind the safety of a gate or under the care of a neighboring sheep herder, but in the wilderness, the place that we see as unruly and unsafe. Which begs the question, where was the lost sheep headed? Was it headed toward the city, toward people who would snatch it up? toward the out-of-control gun violence, the unthinkable devastation of war? What we do know is this sheep was headed away from the wilderness, away from the others, away from the one who cared for it. And that's where the danger lies. Apart from the herd, apart from the one who tends to it, and apart from the place where they are cared for. Now, if we imagine Jesus as the one caring for the sheep, and Jesus is in the wilderness, I wonder, is this where we're being invited? To connect in and with the wilderness, both literally and spiritually. Now stay with me here. Earlier this week, I read from artist, author, speaker, and follower of Jesus, Scott Erickson. And this is what he wrote. The wilderness is a season of your life where all your identities are dissolved. Every object, structure, and title that you've hung the coat of your identity on falls to the ground of obscurity, and you're left with nothing to hold on to. It's a necessary disarmament from the survival narratives we have created that keep us from knowing our truer identity. If this is spiritual wilderness, it kind of makes sense that we might be tempted to run in the other direction. Because we pine for our identities to be shaped by what will get us what we want or what we think we need. Status, money, followers, comfort. Yet it's in this space of spiritual wilderness where the illusion is dissolved that we begin to remember who we are. Who we are in relation to the one who made us, who made all of creation. This place of spiritual wilderness is a place of reconnection. Still, one could argue that we live in a time and place where we're more connected than ever. That reconnection has already been taken care of with devices in our pockets that give us instant access to pretty much anything and anyone we could imagine at any time. We get to steer clear from the wilderness, the place of the unknown, and let the algorithms order our days. Maybe. But what do we miss when we not only avoid spiritual wilderness, but also the literal wilderness, that is, nature itself? There's this concept called nature deficit disorder. Nature deficit disorder. And it's meant to describe the increasing disconnect from nature and the negative consequences this has on our overall well-being. With much of our lives happening indoors or in places where nature's been curated, our connection with the wildness of nature has been disturbed. Now we know the benefits of being outside. It's been proven. We know sitting under a tree, going for a swim in a lake, listening to birds singing, those things, they make us feel better. Yet we struggle to fit time in nature into our lives and our schedules. because we're so busy chasing all those other things that we think we want or need. But as part of creation, we are meant to live in creation, to experience life with nature as our neighbor, not apart from it. What if we were to admit that we've all gotten a little bit lost? That we don't have it all figured out? That what we're chasing will not transform our souls? And without even knowing it, we've been moving away from the one who wants to care for and tend to us, and wandered too close to that place of false certainty, where sadly, in the name of Jesus, seeds of division have been sown. What if we let ourselves be found by Jesus and joined him in the wilderness? Who might we meet there? What might we learn of others and ourselves? What possibilities await us in the place that is beyond our control, but open to our wildest imaginations? A space to explore who we have been created to be in the world, in relation to God, each other, and all of creation. Now look, I am not saying that we abandon all technology or retreat into the woods to live as full-time bushcrafters separated from the world. And I don't think that's what Jesus is asking us either. True, Jesus spent a lot of time in the wilderness, and his ministry was also lived out in cities and in places of worship and in spaces where there was deep conflict. He also told stories about sheep being safe in the wilderness. As we continue to move through this season of creation, why don't we spend a little time with Jesus in the wilderness? Both literally and spiritually, our spiritual and physical lives are intertwined. Let's turn off the phone and play in the pine groves and along the riverbanks, or simply sit under a tree and marvel at the wonders that find us there, waiting to welcome us and rejoice that we have been found. To close, and to help us as we're found and brought out to the wilderness, I'd like to share a poem by Mary Oliver, who so creatively depicts that deep interconnectedness of the world and beyond through her words. It's called Mysteries, Yes. Truly, we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing in the mouths of lambs, how rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, "Look," and laugh in astonishment. and bow their heads.